waste. We're going to make that figure available to you. It does provide some guidance and some things for you to think through in terms of when to apply some of these herbicides. And we've been doing a lot of sort of summary of all of the literature that's been published, a bunch of non-published data, as well as direct experience with 300,000 plus acres that we've helped people monitor on over the years. The first depiction is in the year of treatment. Let's say fall. You see there's a bunch of cheatgrass available on that site. With the Mazapic, if we get it down properly early enough in the fall with sufficient moisture, in many cases we have seen very good consistent control of cheatgrass and limited injury to many of our target or our non-target desirables. And then in some cases, two years after, depending on moisture in soils, which is going to drive a lot of response for many of these herbicides, we sometimes would start to see some re-encroachment of annuals. And then by the time we get to 3 or 4 years after, in many cases, that annual grass population has recovered to where it was prior to treatment. That's going to look different in drier sites and sites depending on soil texture, which we can follow up on that a little bit more if we get that question. Indaziflam alone, many of the sort of consistent results that we've seen through time have been in the treatment year. We really don't see very much at all because we're not targeting the plants that are actively growing that year. 1 year after, depending on when we can get that herbicide out, in terms relative of germination events and relative to precipitation, we'll see anywhere from excellent control 1 year after to not so good. And the not so good has typically been later in the year in fall when we're near that germination event, when we're going with indaziflam alone. But after it really starts going, I've got 2 and 3 years after with virtually no cheatgrass in those sites. I don't know where the far end of that is. We've seen some data that would suggest 5 and 6 years after a single application, we may still have nearly complete control of those target annuals. And in some of our monitoring data, we're seeing re-encroachment on some of those sites in the 3rd year after. So I would say, think about that, get some experience for yourselves as you're starting to make some of those broad scale applications. So as we move later into the year, we have been really moving toward the tank mix if we're using indaziflam with something like a Mazapic or rimsulfuron or some of those others that I mentioned in that earlier slide. And what we do is we can increase that first year of control success, limited injury to the non-targets if we get it out at the right time, and then that control seems to carry on for a longer time period. And I don't know that we could say that we found the end of that one yet either, but I would say that it's probably similar to the profile that we've been seeing for indaziflam alone. All of these responses are going to be site specific. They're going to depend on your existing plant community on those sites. I typically like to look more at the recovery potential of the desirable species as much or more than I do just the annual grass abundance on those sites, because that's really the raw materials for long-term improvement, not necessarily the amount of annual grasses that are there.